Astrology. The forbidden knowledge taught by the angelic watchers in the Book of Enoch is astrology. The Book of Enoch, which belongs to the apocryphal texts, describes how angels known as watchers descended to earth and taught humans various secret knowledge, including how to predict the future by observing stars and celestial bodies. In this tradition, the teaching of astrology is considered a violation of God's will as it replaces reliance on God with divination and astronomical calculations to predict the future. In detail, in the Book of Enoch, especially in chapters 72 to 82, known as Enoch's astronomy, the angels reveal knowledge of a highly advanced astronomical system. They taught humans to observe the movements of the moon, sun, and stars, and how these movements affect the seasons, weather, and even people's daily lives. This included how to calculate time and predict important events based on the positions of celestial bodies. The text explains that the angels provided knowledge about the cycles of the sun and moon, as well as certain constellations that could be used to predict natural changes and other events. Astrology is rooted in the belief that the positions and movements of celestial bodies influence the fate of individuals and events in the world. For example, the ancient Babylonians and Egyptians also used astrology to predict important events such as wars and determining auspicious days for certain activities. However, in the Jewish and Christian traditions, astrology is considered a deviation from religious teachings because it relies on external forces to determine human destiny. It is considered part of the sin of the fallen angels who disobeyed God's commandments and brought forbidden knowledge to earth, causing moral and spiritual decay. Magic and witchcraft. The knowledge of magic and witchcraft includes a number of teachings that lead to practices that are regarded as deviations from God's will. In the Book of Enoch, the angels who descended to earth taught humans various forms of the occult, including the use of magic to control the forces of nature and alter reality. This practice is considered highly forbidden in religious traditions, especially in Judaism and Christianity, as it relies on forces other than God for personal purposes. One of the main examples in the Book of Enoch is the teaching regarding the use of certain potions and ingredients for magical purposes. The archangel Azazel is one of the best known for teaching humans how to make dangerous weapons and potions, as well as how to use magic to manipulate nature, such as controlling the weather, treating illnesses, or even influencing fate. These teachings depict magic being used to directly manipulate the physical and spiritual worlds, which many religious traditions consider a betrayal of God's commands, forbidding such practices. The knowledge of alchemic practices and magic potions taught by the angels also includes ways of altering matter and producing extraordinary effects, which in many ways is considered a form of black magic. This magic is related to the use of certain materials to influence human life and the universe, which is unacceptable in the context of monotheism that prioritizes God as the source of all power. In addition, elsewhere in the Book of Enoch, chapter 8, there are teachings on magical-related sciences such as spirit summoning and understanding supernatural powers. The angels in this case introduce humans to rituals aimed at gaining power from the spiritual world or invisible beings. This was then considered a great deviation that undermined the moral and cosmic order established by God. These magical teachings given by angels are often seen in the context of Jewish and Christian mythology as an attempt to undermine humanity's relationship with God and replace divine power with practices that are more connected to earthly and magical forces. In many cases, this suggests that the magical knowledge and sorcery imparted by the Watchers can lead to spiritual perdition, as exemplified in the story of Azazel, who is ultimately punished by God for teaching forbidden knowledge to humans. Weapon making and warfare. The next forbidden knowledge taught by the angelic Watchers in the Book of Enoch is weapon making and warfare. One of the most famous angels, Azazel, reportedly taught humans how to make weapons, including swords, knives, spears, and other tools of war. In the Book of Enoch, chapter 8, it is mentioned that Azazel taught humans to make weapons and implements of war, as well as providing knowledge on how to use these weapons for destructive purposes. This weapon making is considered forbidden knowledge because in many religious traditions, weapons and violence in war are not only seen as unholy, but also as a form of offense against God's will. In this context, the angels' teaching of weapons served to introduce violence and hostility into human society, which initially lived in peace and order. With the teaching of weapon making, humans were exposed to the ideology of violence and war, which eventually led to much suffering and destruction in the world. In the book of Enoch, this weapon making is not just a technical teaching on how to make tools, but also includes teaching on how to utilize these weapons in the context of war. This leads to the emergence of violence between people where there was none before. This action is attributed to the fall of the angelic watchers, who not only violated God's command not to intervene in human life, but also brought destructive influence by introducing technology that could be used to corrupt human life. Even further, in the book of Enoch, it is mentioned that this teaching led to a change in human morality, giving rise to violence, murder, and warfare that undermined a more peaceful and harmonious world order. In this text, it is explained that the fallen angels, by teaching humans the ways of weapon making and warfare, introduced catastrophe to humanity, which then became heavily dependent on physical force and violence to resolve conflicts. Jewelry and cosmetics. In this text, it is mentioned that the fallen angels taught mankind how to make jewelry, cosmetics, and various other items of self-adornment. This was taught by Shemihaza and Azazel, who imparted knowledge on how to manipulate matter and use certain tools to beautify the external appearance of humans. These teachings included ways of making jewelry from metals, gems, and various other materials, as well as the use of cosmetics to beautify the body and face. In the book of Enoch, chapter 8, this knowledge of jewelry making and cosmetics is often regarded as a symbol of pride and disregard for spiritual values. The angels who taught this knowledge brought about a negative influence by encouraging humans to prioritize physical appearance and materialism over attention to moral and spiritual development. The use of jewelry and cosmetics is considered a form of vanity and excessive appreciation of the physical world, which is contrary to the teachings that emphasize simplicity and humility. This practice of making jewelry and cosmetics is considered forbidden in many religious traditions, as it can lead to humans becoming entangled in a culture of consumerism and materialism. In some interpretations, it is seen as a form of misuse of God-given knowledge, as it focuses more on physical adornment and worldly rewards than on spiritual growth. Moreover, in some interpretations, it is also considered to be associated with the occult, as it often involves the use of certain materials that were considered to have magical or symbolic properties in ancient cultures. For example, certain jewelry may have spiritual significance or power in certain contexts, which adds a mystical dimension to the teachings. Teachings on the use of jewelry and cosmetics also reflect the moral decline that occurred when humans began to pay more attention to their physical appearance than to inner values. Mathematic. In the book of Enoch, chapter 7 and chapter 8, the fallen angels teach humanity various knowledge related to counting, timing, and ways of calculating and understanding the structure of the universe through numbers and mathematical proportions. This teaching focused on geometry, arithmetic, and measurement, which were considered beyond the knowledge that humanity should have at that time. This knowledge mentioned in the book led to the invention of more complex systems of calculation and the introduction of concepts that involved a structural understanding of the physical and spiritual worlds. These teachings included ways to measure time, organize calendars, and understand the patterns and rhythms of the universe through numbers and certain symbols. An important part of the book of Enoch is the teaching of the calendar and the cycles of time. These angels taught humans how to calculate years, months, and days using complex astronomical and mathematical systems. The use of this knowledge allowed humans to predict natural events and time more precisely. This included calculating the positions of celestial bodies, the rotation of planets, as well as the relationship between the movements of celestial bodies and the changes in nature and seasons. In this case, the angels introduced highly advanced concepts for the time, which not only helped humans to predict natural events, but also to plan activities and rituals based on the time cycle. However, knowledge of this science of calculation is considered forbidden by many religious traditions, especially in the Christian and Jewish contexts, as it is considered that humans should not have such a deep knowledge of the structure of the universe and the forces that control it. This knowledge could be seen as an attempt to control destiny and the universe, which is God's alone. In many theologies, demanding this knowledge could be considered an act against God's will, as it relies on human intellect to reveal secrets known only to God. Moreover, in many religious traditions, this deep mastery of arithmetic and calculation runs the risk of making humans feel overconfident in their ability to understand and control the world, which can lead to arrogance and deviation from the simpler spiritual path. In this context, the teaching of arithmetic by angel watchers not only brings knowledge of the physical world, but also undermines the depth of human spirituality, which should rely more on trust and reliance on God than on human science. Astronomy. In the book of Enoch, chapters 72 to 82, it is explained that the fallen angels taught humanity a very profound knowledge of the stars, planets, and the cycles of movement of celestial bodies. This teaching included an understanding of the movements of the sun, moon, and stars, as well as how to calculate time and seasons based on the positions of these heavenly bodies. One of the main teachings given was about the solar and lunar cycles, which relate seasonal changes and natural phenomena to the movement of celestial bodies. The angels revealed to humans how to predict natural phenomena such as eclipses, comets, and seasonal changes, which at that time were considered to be very important events in human life. This knowledge enabled humans to understand more about the relationship between heaven and earth and to organize their time, whether for agricultural purposes, religious celebrations, or other purposes. The Book of Enoch also explains that the angels taught humans ways to measure years and months with greater precision, which in turn helped them to design a more accurate calendar. Several passages in the Book of Enoch explain the 364-day cycle used in Enoch's calendar, which is different from the lunar calendar used by many ancient societies. These teachings allowed humans to organize time more precisely, but also led them to a deeper understanding of the influence of cosmic forces on their lives. However, the teaching of astronomy and celestial science was considered forbidden because in many religious traditions, such knowledge could be considered a form of deviation from reliance on God. In the Book of Enoch, this knowledge was introduced by the fallen angels who were considered to have exceeded the boundaries set by God for mankind. This teaching is considered a form of misuse of knowledge as humans began to use this science to control and predict the world, which should only be the domain of God. More theologically, this knowledge of astronomy can also be interpreted as a form of human arrogance in trying to understand and control the universe in a way that it should not. In many religious teachings, knowledge of the physical world and the cosmos should not be the main goal of life, but rather humans should focus more on their relationship with God and their spiritual life. This teaching also marks an important turning point in the narrative of the Book of Enoch, as the teaching of astronomy and celestial science shows how far the fallen angels intervene in people's lives. They not only taught mundane knowledge such as agriculture or metallurgy, but also more profound knowledge involving humanity's cosmic connection to the universe. Therefore, while this knowledge is essentially a legitimate form of science in the modern context, in the context of the Book of Enoch, it is considered a forbidden teaching that violates the boundaries given to mankind by God. Chemistry and medicine. The next forbidden knowledge taught by the angelic watchers in the Book of Enoch is chemistry and medicine. In the text, the angels teach humans ways to process natural materials into compounds that have the power to heal or even harm. One of the angels, Azazel, is known to teach mankind how to make potions and medicines that contain harmful or forbidden elements. The Book of Enoch, Chapter 8, mentions that the angels taught mankind how to process metals such as copper and iron and other materials to produce compounds that could be used in making potions and medicines. This teaching included an understanding of healing using natural materials, as well as how to make poisonous concoctions that could be used for destructive purposes. More importantly, however, it is considered forbidden in many religious traditions, as it involves knowledge of ways that can alter God's natural processes, such as medicine and healing, that are supposed to occur through God's intercession or through spiritual healing. Teaching people to make these potions or medicines is seen as diverting people away from their reliance on God for healing towards the use of technical knowledge to gain power or control over disease and human life. The chemistry and medicine taught by the angels can also be viewed as knowledge that introduced magical practices into human life. In many ancient cultures, chemistry and medicine were often associated with mysticism and the occult, believing that certain concoctions could provide the ability to control destiny or access the spirit world. Teaching this knowledge, which includes the manipulation of natural elements and materials for specific purposes, could be considered a misuse of God-given knowledge for more sinister purposes, for example, to manipulate nature or create forces incompatible with God's will. Divination. The most mysterious forbidden knowledge taught by the angelic watchers in the Book of Enoch is divination. In this text, some angels teach humans ways to foretell the future and read the signs of nature using various methods such as divination through celestial signs and divination based on natural patterns. These teachings are strongly associated with the practice of divination, which is the attempt to know the future or gain knowledge of unseen things by using certain methods that are considered incompatible with God's will. In the book of Enoch, the angels teach humans to read signs in the sky, such as the movement of stars and other celestial bodies, as well as certain natural phenomena that can be interpreted as omens or predictions. This teaching involves techniques often associated with astrology, numerology, and other forms of divination that try to unearth hidden knowledge about the destiny of man and the universe. One of the angels involved in this teaching is Shemihaza, who together with other angels teaches humans how to interpret celestial and natural signs to predict future events. This includes understanding how the cycles of the moon, stars, and the positions of celestial bodies can provide clues about upcoming events. Divination taught by angels is often connected to attempts to control human destiny and lives through occult knowledge, which contradicts religious teachings that only God knows humanity's destiny and future. By teaching this science of fortune-telling and divination, the angelic watchers encourage humans to seek powers and knowledge that they should not have, which ultimately leads to a misplaced dependence not on God, but on magical or occult powers. Summoning spirits. In this text, certain angels teach humans techniques for summoning, controlling, and interacting with spirits or supernatural beings, which in religious traditions is often considered a form of magic or occult practice. In the book of Enoch, chapters 7 to 8, it is mentioned that angels teach humans ways to get in touch with the spirit world, which is considered very dangerous as it can have a negative influence on the spiritual and moral life of mankind. These angels, who had fallen from their position, gave knowledge on how to use black magic, i.e., ways to manipulate supernatural forces for personal gain or power. These techniques included spirit summoning and occult rituals, which could be used to predict the future, control others, or even attempt to overcome death. Teaching people how to communicate with supernatural beings or control spirits is considered strictly forbidden in many religions, as this can damage people's relationship with God. In the book of Enoch, this teaching is associated with moral decline as humans who follow this path begin to ignore God's will and rely on unwanted forces to change their destiny or achieve their personal goals. Most religions, including Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, regard these practices as a form of worship of evil spirits or demons, replacing the worship of God with the worship of evil forces. In this context, the science of controlling spirits is considered a spiritual aberration that leads to heresy and moral decay. In the book of Enoch, this teaching shows how fallen angels led humanity further into the realm of evil, where humans could be tempted to use supernatural powers for selfish and destructive purposes.